And here we are. It's time for another AEW Dynamite review. Hello, everyone. It's me. It's Mr. Warren Hayes, and it's you. You've decided to come join me today on the podcast thing to recap and review and chat about last night's Dynamite. Last night's Dynamite being the July 10 edition, July 10, 2024 edition of AEW Dynamite. As per usual, I record this on the Thursday, the day after. And so it's July 11. You see how that time sequence goes? Very easy to follow. But that's what we're doing here today on the channel here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes or on your favorite podcast application. Leave a like if you're watching this on YouTube. A 5-star review on Apple Podcast or a 5-star rating on Spotify would also be tremendous. Whatever kind of love you can show that is free. And most of the time, true love is free. Most of the time. Whatever you can do, that would be tremendous to help, and I would appreciate it a great deal, and thank you very much. Last night's Dynamite came to us from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, at the Scotiabank Saddledome. WrestleTix, the latest update, and there's no uptake. The latest update, according to WrestleTix here, gives us 4,500 tickets distributed. I can do words with my mouth just fine. 4,500 tickets distributed is what WrestleTix is reporting as of yesterday, and there hasn't been a more recent update at the moment that I was talking, that I'm recording this, I should say. And WrestleTix did say in their update that they had added in new sections yesterday during the day. So that might be an indicator of some good walk-up business. But as it stands, with the data that I have here, the last time AEW came to the Saddledome, which was last July on top of that, July 15, it was for a Collision taping, which generated 5,896 tickets distributed. So, we're easily 1,000 tickets less, unless there was this incredible swath of people that just showed up and just gobbled up a whole bunch of tickets day of. I don't know, it doesn't quite seem that was the thing. And you know what? I'll tell you one thing. There's arenas, I think, that you can get away, filling up like a third, a quarter of, because that's what's happening with AEW, right? No one's kidding themselves here, right? And I think there are some arenas that you can get away with, doing that, not going up to capacity. And like I said, being a third or a quarter full. But I found that the Saddledome really came across as hollow and empty yesterday. Via the crowd reactions that were happening. I thought it was really rough. It felt, the arena coming onto television really did feel empty. And I mean, the Saddledome's a big hockey arena too. So I don't know. These ticket woes still exist. They're still there. And, it may be a non-issue very soon. We keep hearing talk about how Tony Khan's on the verge of getting this great deal with his great partners over at Warner Bros. Discovery, and how we're just on the cusp of it. And if he does get a big rights deal moving forward, well, he's going to be in a position, AEW is probably going to be in a position where getting big crowd attendances won't be that big of a deal, which was the case with WWE not that long ago, a few years ago, maybe what, like 5-6 years ago. Maybe it's a little shorter than that. Maybe my time frame is all screwed up. But there was a time that WWE was not having a good time trying to fill their buildings with people to come and watch the program, watch the TV tapings, and the house show business was absolutely miserable. Now it's the opposite, right? But back then, everyone sort of shrugged and said, well, it doesn't seem to be that much of a concern or a worry because their rights deals are so tremendous that they can live with the venues not being, full in any way, shape, or form. So maybe it'll be that kind of situation that we're going to be in. But, whether it's a financial problem or not, having venues that aren't full, that aren't filled with capacity fans, right? That with people being excited, and it does have an impact on the product. The product doesn't feel as hot, doesn't feel as good, and it reflects in not only in the presentation and how it's presented to us on television, but it also has to have an impact on talent as well, where at some point you're like, well, okay, we're in this, I don't know, this 19,000 seat arena and we're performing in front of 4,000 people. That's not great for morale either. So, it's not just a question of, oh, AEW is safe, there's no more issues. There's still issues. There's still problems to be had. But this show here, why don't we get into it? We hadn't had our little rant about attendance recently, but here we are. Let's get into the show. Might as well get to it. Show opens up with a recap of MJF's promo from Collision, the promo that he cut on Daniel Garcia, where he's essentially saying, did you really think that I was going to be the cool guy here, and essentially, saying, hey, you know what, I tried to be everything for these people, and this is what happened, kind of thing. And yeah, and that leads us into Will Ospreay hitting the ring and cutting a promo. Says that last week at the, he was appalled and disgusted at the end of Dynamite last week, but he wasn't really surprised. He had heard that MJF was one of the most insecure men in pro wrestling, and it showed because, he went after a guy like Daniel Garcia who earns every opportunity he gets. And MJF, tried to stop that because he's insecure. Ospreay also tells us that Garcia is at home right now with no feeling in his arms and no timetable to his return. And that's just tremendous. Of course, the injuries were work, but, the fact that they're really the fact that Garcia wasn't there this week to sell the injury was great, but it's not only that. Apparently, at this point, they are absolutely leaning into the idea that Garcia is super hurt and that he might not come back, so that when he does mount his big return to the company, it's going to be all the more meaningful. So. Wherever that may be, will he be back on time for Wembley or whatnot? We'll see. But again, I think this is more. This should also continue to sort of throw some water on that little fire that had started smoldering last week, where suddenly Daniel Garcia was talking with WWE officials and his contract is coming up and so on and so forth. And yet he's in the midst of, he's on the cusp of probably the biggest push of his career right now. None of it makes sense. Yes, this is leading to Ospreay and MJF, of course, we'll get to that in a second, but But Daniel Garcia is not just a utility player here. This is part of a greater plan for him as well. So Ospreay continues, talks about the bidding war, how the bidding war of 2024 didn't quite go MJF's way, and that especially that Tony Khan would rather spend his money on guys like Will Ospreay, who will help elevate the brand. But he says the main reason MJF doesn't like Ospreay is that it reminds people of what AEW is supposed to be. And that's very interesting coming from a guy who just came into the company, but you also get it. You know, you understand what he's trying to, you pick up what he's putting down. And he feels like the moment he stepped into AEW, he's been cleaning up after someone else's mess. And I don't know if that's a remark that's supposed to be, you know, a shot at MJF. You know, like it's probably, it could be just a kayfabe thing, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, but you know. And he wants to fight tonight. He says, MJF, if you're back there, come on out, let's do this. MJF shows up instead on the Tonytron. He's having a glass of wine, so he's not inclined to fight. MJF isn't the flavor of the month, he says, unlike Will Ospreay. MJF is the flavor of the millennia. Wow, that's gonna be tasty for a while. And he basically, MJF says, look, eventually people are going to get tired of your routine. He's talking to Will. And we'll try to throw him in the trash just like they did to him. But unlike Will, MJF is not replaceable. And the next flippy guy will come along and take his spot. Here today, gone tomorrow kind of thing. He's gearing up here. MJ, he says, and this all sets up a title match for the International Championship, right? Next week on Dynamite, which just so happens to be the 250th episode of Dynamite. So this was a fine little promo. It was all good stuff. Will even went to Twitter to apologize for the promo that he cut last night. He says, it wasn't great. I thought it was fine. I don't think it was anything exceptional. I don't think it's anything that, we will be remembering anytime soon. It was well done, competent. It was okay. But yeah, it's not as much that I necessarily want to talk about, because it's fine. It set up the match for next week. And I mean, next week, this episode 250 of Dynamite is stacking up to be a tremendous show. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I think this is, if next week is episode 250, that means I think there's like 38 or 39 episodes of Dynamite left, and AEW Dynamite will have been on television longer than WCW Nitro. I just want to help, stir things in your mind a little bit. But the idea right now is that they're stacking up the show to be a big deal. And they'll be kicking off the show, if I'm not mistaken, with Ospreay versus MJF. And they've even announced they've announced a couple of other things as well, including Swerve Strickland versus Kazuchika Okada, title for title on top of that, which is just bonkers. And then Mercedes Moné after the show set up an open challenge for just anyone who wants to come after her, right? So already, you know, this show is starting to feel pretty significant, pretty big. And look, again, we're getting back to the point where we're booking stuff in advance. There seems to be more continuity, more thought put into this stuff. So it doesn't feel as if we're slapdashing as much. And if they want to make a big deal out of the 250th episode show next week, they're on the right way to do it. By the way, there's a lot of people who got really excited at the idea of an open challenge for Moné, right? And I just want to get this out of the way. Obviously it didn't happen on the show, and I don't necessarily want to spend too much time talking about this since it's not part of the show I'm actually reviewing, but it's part of the grand scheme of things. Bear with me here. A lot of people started rubbing their hands together and they're like, oh, it's Jamie, right? Because Britt can't be the person accepting the open challenge. It has to be someone else, right? And everyone's like, oh, it's Jamie. Jamie's back. Jamie. And I would like Jamie Hayter to return to AEW as soon as possible. Because I've talked about it a couple of times, and I really feel I feel really strongly about this. The women's division in AEW right now has never felt stronger, and I think it would only continue to be bolstered by having Jamie Hayter return, who is a great pro wrestler, probably one of the top women's pro wrestlers, working in North America today. And she's popular. AEW fans love her, and they want her to return. Now the question that I have is, do you have her return to muddy these waters with the feud between Britt and Moné, which is right now the clear shot money feud, right? Which you can absolutely put on the Wembley show, and you're like, yeah, this is a big time money match right here. Why would you try to muddy the waters and throw Jamie in there, who a lot of people would argue also has a claim on the title and the world title on top of that? Don't forget, this is all about the TBS title. But a lot of people would feel like Jamie has a claim to this, right? And she deserves to be in the title picture, which would just end up diluting the heat between Moné and Baker, and then it creates a weird dynamic between Jamie and Britt, who are supposed to be friends, which kind of leads me to believe, or at least, kind of leads me to think anyway, at the very least, maybe not believe as in I believe it, kind of leads me to think that AEW, if they do this, might be angling to do a three-way match at Wembley, which would be a complete whiff. Like, you don't need Jamie shoehorned into this. Like, you're fine with the one-on-one. And again, like, there's if she's ready to go and she's ready to come back, we're doing huge ifs here. Build her to be a contender one-on-one with just one person. And I think it's a disservice to Britt. It's a disservice to Mercedes. It's a disservice to Jamie to just, chug all these women into a three-way instead of having a proper one-on-one build, which I think has been good so far and could continue easily to grow and become more and more intense. Turning this into a three-way and adding Jamie into this to sort of muddy, I'd be much more weary, and I would not ultimately be a fan of it. And an open challenge, anyone can answer the open challenge, right? It could be anyone. How many women on the undercard do they have right now that could just pop in, take the L and go home, and everything is fine? They could bring up, they could bring Layla Hirsch up. You know, they could pull out Emi Sakura. They could do so many things with so many people. Just and give Mercedes a match. Because here's the other thing: Mercedes has to get on TV in the interim to going to all out. She has to get on TV, and she has to rack up some W's too. She has to defend the title at least a couple of times in the meantime. So the Open Challenge is a good idea. It's a good way to do that. You have someone come out, you do it, and then sayonara, she gets the win, and then there we go, we're all done, and then you continue the angle with Britt. But I think right now there's so much good in this angle with Britt that I feel we'd be going sideways if all of a sudden we'd be going sideways if all of a sudden Jamie was added to the mix, and it would just muddy stuff up. And I don't think it would be the proper way to bring Hayter back. I think Jamie Hayter returning on her own for a one-on-one match, I think that would be I think it's a moment in and about itself that doesn't need to be tacked on, added in, shoehorned, whatever expression you want to do, into an existing feud, whose basis is already someone coming back from injury and looking to take a spot back. I don't know. We'll see how all this turns out, but as it stands right now, I'm not expecting a big reveal for for the Open Challenge. Not expecting it, but it could happen. Don't get me wrong. It could absolutely happen. They could be. I'm not putting this above AEW to do that, That's all I'm saying. But here's an important thing to sort of counteract my argument. Play against me. Say I'm being fair, devil's advocate. If AEW didn't want people to think of someone big who might be added to the show, then they shouldn't have done the announcement a week ahead of time, right? Because now the expectations are kind of higher. So if they do pull in, Layla Hirsch, Penelope Ford, like I don't know if Penelope is still injured or not. I'm just throwing names out there, right? If we're just pulling people in, right? Then it could be. If we're just pulling someone in, then people might be disappointed because, we were expecting something bigger. We were expecting a bigger moment. And on top of that, it's episode 250. So it's all stuff where you're like, we could do something bigger here, kind of thing. So I don't blame anyone for expecting, Jamie next week. All I'm saying is it's kind of weird. That's all. So anyway, we got a little off track. Let's get back to the show itself. So Ospreay closes up the promo, and we move on to the opening match, which is the Owen Hart Foundation 2024 Men's Tournament final match, where Bryan Danielson defeated Hangman Adam Page to move on and get the shot at the AEW World title at All Out in Wembley Stadium in just about a month or so. And you want to talk about a shocking result? I don't think... What were we what was the expectation here, right? Well, that Hangman was going to win. You know, and then go and face Swerve at the pay-per-view, at the big show, rekindling their feud. Like, you know, Hangman is clearly he's on this path, right? And he's aggressive, he's angry, he's mad. But this is not the result we got. We got Bryan Danielson. We're featuring the story of Bryan Danielson one last time, trying to get the big one, trying maybe to be AEW World Champion, you know, before he goes part-time. You know, they're two good stories. I was just baffled, and I kind of still am, you know, trying to put all of this together. And this was a great match. Like, this was so much fun, and just a really, really great pro wrestling match coming off of the heels of that extraordinary promo that Page cut and that was released no, it wasn't just on social media. It was on Collision last week. Just an absolute barn burner of a promo that leads into this match here, where you're like, yeah, this is the fight. This is what we're going for, right? This is the thing that this is the guy that's going to move forward here. And listen, these two dudes, we knew had chemistry. We knew it all connected. We knew all of this sort of came together, and you know, with their previous matches, and it continued showing that, you know, Page and Danielson just really work well with each other. And you know, Danielson gets thrown into the barricade, right? Like, or no, he dives on into the barricade, right? He does a tope suicida, and he goes through the ropes, and he dives onto Page, and he lands into the barricade. And what does Danielson do? What is the first thing that he does after he connects with the barricade? He puts his hand on his neck. He grabs his neck, like, he hangs on to it. And there you go. And you're like, this guy, like, again, the story of the neck is there. And I thought the story of the neck was going to be used as the device to explain why Danielson lost for whatever reason, but it turns out no. And it's not as if Page didn't work over the neck. He did, you know, ramming his head into the steel stairs, and Danielson's bleeding. I'm like throughout this match, I'm like, okay, Page has got this. Like, he's just, you know, Page is throttling the head so much, and it's the story of the tournament, and he's pulling off the KT tape, and yeah, it's just like he's complete. He's dominating Danielson so much and using his weakened neck to his disadvantage. I'm like, this is it. Like, this is the thing that happened, right? There's this spider German spot that Danielson does on Page, and Page lands like right on his head. Oh my God. Pile driver on the floor by Adam Page after he after this almost to the floor. Danielson had done a springboard dive to the floor, and Page does the pile driver. I swear, you know, and then everyone comes in to check, right? Doc Samson, you know, essentially like one of the key elements of Danielson's story. He's right there. I'm telling you, I'm like, okay, this is all coming apart here. So they're trading suplexes. There's a ref bump, and Adam Page gets his belt and he starts, you know, whipping Danielson. But Jeff Jarrett, who was there as a special enforcer, right? He had been there at first. He was actually looking at Adam Page to come out of the heel tunnel, but Adam Page came out of the came out of the babyface tunnel, because in his mind, like he was saying about Swerve, is like Swerve's the guy who invaded my home and forced my family to move. I'm the good guy here. I kind of like that. It's a nice little subtle thing. But yeah, so Jarrett gets involved, reveals himself to also be a referee so he can continue calling the match. Adam Page is not happy about this. There's a label lock that then is transitioned into a Deadeye by Page. He does the buckshot lariat to the back of the head and another one, but Danielson avoids it. Locks in a crossface, gets locked into a crossface by Page, and then Danielson rolls out of it, pinning Page and getting the bit of the surprise win. And of course, this is all with Jeff Jarrett counting the pinfall. I thought this match was I thought this was a great match. I thought it was a tremendous way to kick off the show. Now, the only so I know there's a lot of people who are upset that Hanger didn't win. All I can say is it's fine. Don't worry. Like, if there's one guy in this company I would not worry about, it's Hangman Adam Page. And if there's one guy whose storytelling has me in complete confidence of this decision, it's, again, Hangman Adam Page. I don't think there's another pro wrestler in this company whose story has been so thought out and consistent with callbacks and logic. I think he absolutely has the best overall long-term story of the entire company. So I am not worried about Hangman Adam Page in AEW. And if he's not doing the main event against Swerve at Wembley, then we're doing it at All Out, I guess. Or whatever. They've always had plans for Hangman. Now, if he can just stop making babies and, disappearing for 4 months at a time because of it, we might get like a great push now. We'll see. But a lot of people are really, really upset about this. Saw people saying, oh, they keep missing the mark on Hangman Adam Page. This guy was a world champion. This guy was the centerpiece he was the ace of the company. Keep missing the mark. What are we talking about? I know you're fans. I'm a fan too. I love me some Adam Page, especially this incarnation. I think it's great. This heel turn has been such a refreshing rejuvenation for him. Just kept everything. It's keeping everything great. But, we're not missing marks here. Come on. So, yeah, I think everyone sort of needs to relax and calm down, because I might not be as confident with many other booking decisions, but when it comes to Page, I feel like there's extra special care that's added in here. But I swear, if they do Hangman Adam Page, if this is being done because they want to do Hangman Adam Page versus Jeff Jarrett at Wembley, because people were all up in their feelings about Jeff Jarrett losing and not understanding what heat is, and that's all that it was that it was really needed to do. If this is all to create a completely unnecessary blow-off between Page and Jarrett at Wembley Stadium, then I'll be a little upset. That's the kind of thing that'll make me upset, because there's no reason to have a blow-off to that. It's not a feud. It's not something significant. It's not something that's going to carry specifically on top of it all. It's not something that's going to carry the company for years moving forward. It's Jeff Jarrett, and the role that he played in the build to the match with Danielson was tremendous, and that's all that was really needed. I don't even know we needed him as an enforcer. I think it's just to make people happy Jeff has to get his comeuppance. Who cares? I think it's, if we're going down that route, I think it's a little wishy-washy and I'm not for it. Anyway, after the match, Martha Hart shows up to award the cup to Danielson, and Jeff Jarrett is there as well. So they all celebrate there, and Martha Hart says that she'll see him for his title shot at Wembley, and that's all great. And then as this is happening, Swerve Strickland comes down to the ring, and then we cut to commercial, so we don't actually see the entrance, the interaction. But I kind of like this, that it's the segments sort of meshed into each other. So that was, look, the match was great. Danielson winning the cup is fantastic. You've all heard my reservations moving forward, what I'm worried about or not. But okay, one last thought, and I'm not convinced about this yet, but I'm maybe 60% convinced of the statement I'm about to make. 70%, the liar. I don't think Swerve Strickland versus Bryan Danielson is the biggest match they could have put on in Wembley. I still think that's Page and Swerve. I still think. And if they're delaying it because they want to add in more months of build or whatnot, there's no need to, because the story has been so good between these two. It just reignites in a second. It's not a big deal. But is it the more interesting match? I don't even know if it's the more interesting match. I think it'll be good to have another big time Danielson match. I think it opens up the conversation a little more, makes the finish a little unpredictable. Do we stick with Swerve? Does he get like a big time win as champion against Danielson? Just, not unlike what he did with Ospreay. Or does Danielson finally get the title and, can say that he was AEW World Champion before going part-time? But I also say it makes, it's a conversation starter. We're not quite sure in which direction they can go. But I think it's the same way with Hangman and Swerve. Like if the main event had been Swerve versus Hangman, I think you could make the same. You could have that same discussion. I don't think like the winner is as clear cut. I think there's a very good, strong argument for Page to have won in that scenario had it come to fruition. But you could still convince me that it's a good idea for Swerve to hang on to the title as well. I don't think either way would have been that cut and dry. So I think it's going to be a great match because Swerve is tremendous. Danielson is one of the greatest to ever do it. It's fine, we're not. I don't think it's a downgrade. I don't think it's a match that it's not a downgrade. I don't think it's going to be a bad match by any stretch of the imagination, but I also think we could have, I think the hotter match is being slept on. That being said, I much prefer this than having Danielson, lose an opportunity here on this big stage to fight, neck broken Nigel McGuinness. Which I know a lot of people want to see, and I don't. I don't want to see Nigel McGuinness, who hasn't been in a ring for years upon years upon years, try to make his way through a match with Bryan Danielson. I really don't. I have no interest in that. Anyway. 40 minutes in. Okay. All right then. Well, why don't we talk about the main event, and then I'll sort of zoom through everything else, because the main event, why don't we do that? So that I feel like I have enough time to talk about the stuff which I think is really, really good, and then we can sort of go through the other stuff. Because overall, you know, this Dynamite I thought was fine. Like, we are not even close to the Dynamite we got last week, but I thought this Dynamite was fine. I think we had a great match to open, and a main event especially with an angle that just finished on such a high note. It was the Dynamite sandwich, where you have two really hot things to start and finish the show, and then everything else is like, okay, you know, stuff happening and it's good. But look, Mariah May defeated Willow Nightingale to move forward in the Owen Hart Foundation 2024 tournament. I thought the match was fine. I thought it was a fine little match. You know, after the break, when they come back from commercial break, then they really start laying in the power moves. A great fisherman's bomb by Willow, like just tremendous, really well done. The pounce is countered by a headbutt by Mariah May, and then Statlander and Stokely get involved. Statlander kicks Willow, but it doesn't really impact the finish. We don't like go to finish on that front. She comes in. It's not a kick. She does a knee strike. And Mariah then takes advantage of it, but Willow still kicks out. Lots of near falls. Audience is into it. People are crazy about it. Cannonball into the corner by Willow. She picks up Mariah to do a Death Valley driver, but Mariah rolls out of it, reverses out, and rolls up Willow Nightingale for the 1-2-3. Snatching the win away from Nightingale from being a two-time. I knew Statlander would get involved. I'm kind of happy that she got involved, but it didn't have an impact, like a significant, that it didn't lead directly to the finish. I'm kind of happy about that. Continues to add a little fuel to their feud, and I think overall it's okay. I think it's good. And then, well, of course, in the meantime, like Toni Storm was at ringside, and you know the whole entourage, and then they start celebrating, and then they go up the ramp, and they shake hands, and May jumps into Tony's arms, and they actually they skip up the aisle, right? Or at least Tony is, right? And then I'm like, wait a minute. So, Mariah May takes the belt off the podium, and I'm like, where's Martha Hart? Why is she not doing the ceremony for the women? What was it? And then that got explained really quick, because Mariah May just blasts Tony across the head with the belt. And I'm talking blasts, okay? Like, how... You've all watched enough pro wrestling to know, how to throw a good worked belt shot. They fold over the straps and they hold it, with the front panel of the belt full, forward, and they sort of they push it upward, right? It's like they come to give the title, but they, if you were to cram it into someone's face, you just go straight forward for the face. But usually they sort of do a motion where they lift the belt up, it's like boom kind of thing. There's contact, but it's not full blown on the face, But Mariah just completely like swats Tony across the head with it, like there, and she's just like ramming into her, and I'm like, Jesus, Mariah, why are you working so stiff? She's working so stiff, and then she kicks. Japanese deathmatch butler Luther in the no-nos as well, and she just creams him with a couple of shots as well. And then Tony she starts bleeding, and Mariah just beats her up, and it's savage, it's brutal. Luther flies off the stage through the through tables. And then Mariah grabs one of the shoes and she starts like stabbing the head with the heel. And she's grinding. It's a tremendous angle to wrap the show. It's just amazing stuff. And she's like, and she's rubbing Toni's blood on her face, and she's giving her big kisses, and everything is so brutal and tremendous. You know, the hate, not unlike what MJF told us not that long ago. Hate, hate, hate. That's what drives good angles in pro wrestling. I'm sorry to say. That is what drives good angles in professional wrestling in 2024, in any period. Animosity. Why do you think people were disappointed that Hangman Adam Page isn't getting the title shot at Wembley Stadium against Swerve? It's because he and Swerve hate each other in kayfabe. And it's the same thing here. Why are we excited about? Look, we all knew this was coming. We all knew the All About Eve thing. We all knew this was going to happen. Did we figure it would happen so quickly? No. This is like, no, they pulled the ripcord on this one and it just happened. And did we expect it to be so violent? No, we did not. Mariah is absolutely doing the thing where she's like, I've used you to get to my shot, to get to this spot. Now I don't need you anymore. And I'm going to destroy you and take everything. And like, it's tremendous. It's tremendous. What a hot way to end the show. And this has made this angle instantly hot. Instant. And look, whatever twists and turns they want to do is fine as we go to Wembley, right? Because we still have quite a few weeks. But if there was ever a moment, an opportunity to push the eject button on the timeless Toni stuff, it's this here. Like, this could, knock some sense into Toni and then, reemerge, dump the timeless stuff and now just be, because Toni Storm can't be goofy in this situation here. This was too brutal. This was too real. It was too savage. They weren't doing the black and white camera angles. You know what I mean? They weren't doing the cutesy stuff during this because it had to feel real. It had to feel legitimate, and it did. It came across as vile and hateful and just a great angle. God, I love pro wrestling. When it's done right, it's so good. Everyone thinks it has to be this convoluted thing that we have to overthink. No, but it doesn't sometimes either. And look, even in the context of an angle whose outcome we all saw coming, we still managed to get surprised because that's how well it was done. And we're talking about it. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's excited about it because it was excellent. It wasn't just well done. It was excellent. What a great visual to end the show on top of that. Tremendous choices. Just great stuff. And now I'm excited. But if there was ever a moment that was the good time to get rid of the timeless Toni stuff, it is now. It is absolutely now. Japanese deathmatch Butler Luther, he could just be dead, off of the spot he took, it's fine. Just awesome stuff. So we were talking about Danielson and whatnot, and And now we're into, well, let's go back to that spot where Danielson, as we mentioned, was walking away, and then Swerve came in, and then Swerve cut a promo. So again, we didn't see the interaction between the two, between Danielson and Swerve, and I think that's okay. Like, they probably stared at each other, but tape machines were rolling, so if there was ever something significant that happened, I'm pretty sure they would have replayed it. But so, we come back from commercial. Swerve is cutting a promo, and, he puts himself over, congratulates Danielson and for winning the Owen, and he's looking forward to the match at Wembley. And he's still holding a grudge on Danielson for that pinfall victory he has on him. Then to me, that's fantastic. See, you got a little extra something there, a little extra motivation for the champ. And he says, me, I carry grudges. And look, this is good. Just very simple pro wrestling storytelling. I love this stuff. That's tremendous. And essentially, he puts himself into the blood and guts match. He says, I'm going to lead this team to victory against the EVPs. So all these little snipes that the Bucks were taking towards him weeks ago are all leading to this. So again, some long-term vision to the booking here, I think, is what we can assess from this situation. And he, and at the same time, when Swerve says, that I'm going to do this, I'm going to lead Team AEW, he says, I'm going to do it. And he takes the opportunity to take a shot at Danielson, saying, I'm going to lead my team to victory. You couldn't do it against the Elite at the pay-per-view, but I'm going to be able to do it because, I'm a real leader, kind of thing. So, don't hate this. And then he issues a challenge to Kazuchika Okada, which later on, of course, well, we've already mentioned it, that Okada did accept, and we're going to be having Swerve versus Okada title for title next week. I mean, if there was ever a match that screams going to time, it's that one. I don't think either guy's dropping a title, right? Yeah, good. Fine promo by Swerve. I think it was fine. Get a video package, hyping up Willow Nightingale versus Mariah May. We already talked about that match. Then we get Chris Jericho defeating Samoa Joe. Look, this was a plunder match. They were in street gear. Samoa Joe had jeans on. It was a street fight, as the kids like to say. The kids don't like to say that. But here's the thing, is that they fight into the audience, and then they fight, they walk and brawl to the backstage area. And then Big Bill comes out of nowhere, starts double teaming Joe with Chris Jericho. Same thing with Brian Keith, who also shows up, and Big Bill puts Joe on a pallet on a forklift, and Jericho gets into the forklift, and it just so happens that there's a wall of drywall there that Jericho drives right through, with Joe still on the pallet. So Joe goes through the wall, and there's carpenters there going, oh my God, there's people going, what the hell happened? And so that's a thing that happened. They went right through this very real wall that was absolutely there. That's absolutely usually there in the Saddledome. Absolutely. And basically Joe is injured out of the match. The referee stops the match, and Jericho sort of looks a bit, looks a little crazy, looks a little tense, goes, bye, Joe, all that stuff. And then after the commercial, I think they load Joe onto into an ambulance, so he did a stretcher job and everything. Like they're putting over the fact he's hurt, he's unconscious, and Jericho's just smacking his lips, saying, "Oh, this was great," kind of thing. You know, he's not saying this was great, but you know, it's like, ha ha ha, gotcha, you know, kind of thing. I mean, driving stuff through drywall, okay, you know. I know a lot of you don't want to hear the fact that this is something we've seen multiple times in WWE, and they don't even do this stuff anymore, you know. But okay, look, the angle was effective enough where I was like, okay, it's fine, it's a good angle. And it turns out the reason why they did the angle is because they needed to write Samoa Joe off TV for a while, because he's gonna go shoot the season 2 of Twisted Metal, which I haven't even watched. I don't even know if it's... I've heard very mixed reviews. Let's put it that way. I don't even know if it's good. I've heard people mostly going... So yeah. So he's gonna be gone for a while. Look, you know, the match in and about itself was just a plunder match. There were horseshoes, you know, just these are Chris Jericho ideas, right? They're the most Chris Jericho ideas. It's like, oh, there's horseshoes. Oh, I wonder who came up with that kind of thing. But look, it's okay. It's fine. It advances the story. There'll be something for Joe to do when he comes back. There's going to be some revenge story. It's all fine, you know. And hook to, like, maybe they'll take out Shibata next, right? Maybe that'll be the thing. Anyway, I'm glad it's done, and well, I'm glad it's done. I'm glad I'm glad they did something creative enough to explain why Joe was going to be taken out here, but for a while, and you know, I hope he enjoys shooting his big Hollywood TV show. But when it comes to the angle itself, I'm like, oh well, you know, kind of seen this before. And again, they're doing things that we've seen the other company do before with these drywall things, and you know, well, these are all producers who used to work there, and they haven't done this stuff in a long time. So I don't know. It's okay. It's fine. I don't want... Look, we're almost an hour into this review, and I'm not done with the show. So, you know, I don't want to get not too nitpicky. Just nitpicky enough. Then we got Pac defeating Claudio Castagnoli, Kyle Fletcher, and Tomohiro Ishii, all vying for the number one... the number one spot, the spot for the number one contender for the AEW international title. They called it a Global Glory 4-way match. Like, absolutely, like this between the All-Star match that they had a couple of weeks ago and the Global Glory 4-way match. Let's go. I think it's tremendous. And this match was a hoot and a holler. This was tremendous. This was a great match. I gave this 4 stars. That's how much I liked this match. I thought it was... Look, everyone was working hard. Everyone had their working boots on. It was just fast-paced. Guys dropping each other on each other's heads. And you had Tomohiro Ishii on top of that, who was in this, just doing great stuff. And he just seems motivated. He feels, it looks like he's into it. He enjoys these little scrappy little short matches, these confrontations with Claudio, where Claudio towers over the guy. And you know, I know Ishii is not the tallest dude. Like, I know this, but when you see him with a guy like Claudio, who is legitimately tall, and it really it strikes you where you're like, you know, it's weird because Ishii, when you watch when you watch him in New Japan, you watch him do his thing. Usually, you know, he's always like, you know, the tank taking people down. You don't necessarily see him as being so short, so it's always kind of like, you know, it takes you back. You're like, right. But goddamn, this ruled. This ruled so much. And Kyle Fletcher was eating, everyone was bumping here, even Ishii, and Kyle Fletcher was eating so much shit in the sharpshooter. He's in the sharpshooter, a Claudio sharpshooter, and while he's in the sharpshooter, Pac lands an elbow drop on top of him. Like, I'm like, poor guy. And then he gets all tangled up into a brutalizer with that. They're dropping Germans on each other, and finally, it's a brutalizer, a Black Arrow and a brutalizer by Pac that gets the win. Blast, just an absolute blast. And now it turns out that Tony Khan has announced that Tomohiro Ishii is going to be hanging around for a bit more. He's going to spend the summer with us. He said, "Look, the guy's not in the G1, you know," and I think there's something to be said about him spending the summer, you know, in Arlington. Probably, spending the summer in Arlington, having these, you know, these less impactful American TV matches. You know, there's something to be said about him doing that as opposed to going through a G1 an entire summer of just getting the shit beat out of you every other night kind of thing. I don't blame him. You know, like, it's good for him. Good for Ishii. He's gonna have a nice summer, and you know what? People like him, and you get the impression that he really likes wrestling in North America, and he's treated like a true to form star here, which, you know, isn't always the case in Japan. You know, it's not as much. I don't think he's treated with as much reverence in Japan as he is here by the general viewing audience. I'm not that I'm saying that Japanese fans don't like him and, you know, they poo-poo on his matches. They don't. But, you know, people get excited when they see Ishii here in North America. We get excited when we see him wrestle in Japan, and here, like, you know, there's a lot of good stuff. And look, the match itself, like I said, a blast. And again, one of these multi-man matches that's just high octane, super delivers. Everyone's going balls to the wall. Like, more of these. Again, week after week after week, we are proven right. They prove us right that when they do the multi-person matches, the multi-man matches, the trios matches, they just deliver. So more all-star matches. Give me some more Global Glory 4-ways with a British guy, a Swiss, an Australian, and a Japanese guy. I want, like, let's just go. This was fun as hell. Pro wrestling. What do you want from me? This was great. After the match, Pac cuts a promo, you know, where he's all, again, talking about how things don't always go his way, you know, and he's had some humiliating failures, but, you know, he doesn't know what's next, but he wants his Wembley moment. No one's going to keep him from it or something like that. So, you know, that's been his story too, you know, where he's just been losing. He's been losing, and this is a guy who is, you know, an AEW original, really. He was there from the start. He was there at the first press conference. He's sure, you know, injuries and whatnot, but here's another guy that all AEW fans really, really like. I think pushing Pac would be so much easier than it looks or it feels like. I had the impression that I had the impression that Tony feels like pushing Pac is complicated or won't get over. It's fine. Pac is fine. Just have them have cool matches. You know, and that's the have them have cool matches is representative of 90% of the pushes Tony could just let his guys and gals have. Just let them have cool matches and they'll get over, because this is a company where people can still get over with cool matches. And you don't need these crazy, over the top, convoluted, corny stories to make it happen. Just let them have cool matches. After that, Renee Paquette was backstage doing a walking interview. It kind of felt like she was gearing up to do a man on the street type of deal. And Adam Page pops out of nowhere and he just like shoulders her and she's like, "Hey, show me some respect." I'm like, this is kind of weird. You know, Renee's has a, you know, not that I don't think she shouldn't stick up for herself, but it just came like so much out of left field. You know, Renee is so nice and smiling and sweet most of the, you know, all the time. And it's like, you're like, whoa. Paige, you know, is like, oh, if you weren't Moxley's wife, probably, or maybe, but maybe not. And there's a guy who has nothing to do. We don't know what Mox's trajectory to Wembley is yet. There's a guy that we mustn't forget about here in this circumstance. Anyway, Paige, once Renee leaves, knocks on the door to the Elite's locker room, and Kazuchika Okada squares up with them, and the Bucks come out to defuse the situation, and basically Paige says, "Hey, I'll do it," which probably means he'll join the Elite for Blood and Guts, and Swerve's going to be there too. Well, they're probably going to add Danielson. Look, here's the thing, right? If Swerve is putting Team AEW together, I would assume that he would step aside from using the Acclaimed, right? Wouldn't you? We don't need, I can't stress this enough. You don't need the Acclaimed in a Blood and Guts match. Really. Mercedes Moné gets to the ring. She grabs a mic for her two-time champ toast, her two-title toast, her toast for her two titles. Toasting to her two double belts, double belt toast. A toast for two belts, for holding two belts, for wearing two belts. When you wear two belts, you get a toast. Well, you toast, and not a piece of bread that was expertly toasted, like a toast with alcohol, you know. And it's funny because her toast, you know, you sort of expect champagne or, you know, prosecco or, a vintage red wine. You know, she's got a shot glass. Like Mercedes, she's ready to go all college kid on us. Good for her. And she cuts a promo where she's completely disingenuous. Like, if you had any thoughts as to whether she was going to be a heel, whether she moving forward, whether she was going to be a heel-leaning tweener or whatever. No. She's full on. She's full on heel, and that's honestly where she shines. This is where she is her most. This is where she's at her best, and her promos then all connect. They all make sense. They're all fine, and you know, she makes fun of, you know. She's not that she makes fun of Calgary. She calls herself the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. So of course, Calgary, Alberta, Canada doesn't quite like that, and she's about to she's about, and she reminds us, she make, or at least she makes it very clear if it wasn't clear last week, Britt at All In is not happening. That's what she says. It's just not happening. So she's going to do that. She's going to do that act, which is fine. And I think it suits her. I think it's good. And then she pours herself her shot. But before she can knock it back, we have Britt Baker coming out, and there's security that was provided by the Young Bucks, like Mercedes said, that will to prevent any interruptions. But Britt is like, screw this, and she starts beating up on some dudes, which I thought was delightful. That's fantastic. And so when she gets close to the ring, Mercedes takes a powder, and Britt is left alone standing. Again, like commentary said, she is upstaging Mercedes Moné once again. And that this has been over the past, ever since Britt's return at the pay-per-view, she has been, this has been the story. This is what they've been saying, upstaging. So yeah, there you go. I mean, this is where we're at. Yeah, fine little segment. Very WWE-ish, but it got the job done. I guess it's fine, and people love themselves some Brit. And you see, I look at this to compound my point from earlier. I don't see how do you add Jamie in here without taking shine away from Britt. And Britt's return, in my opinion, is big enough. Like, I know it would suck for Jamie to miss out on Wembley Stadium again this year, but Jamie is such an important component of the women's division that I think her return and her inclusion in a big angle should be all about her and not like an extra person, something else, another layer to her return that sort of just takes attention away. I don't think that should be the way we go. I still don't think it's a good idea. I guess the last thing we talk about is Darby Allin beating the crap out of Brandon Cutler, who has Darby face paint on. Now, there may be something that I missed somewhere. Maybe on, I don't know, a social media post. Maybe there's something I don't remember from Rampage. But why was Brandon Cutler wearing Darby face paint in the first place? And please tell me in the comments if I missed it, because I don't understand. I was like, what is he doing? Did Darby like beat him up first, then put the face paint on, and then started beating up on him some more? That's very convoluted. What kind of weird message are you sending here, Darby? But he says, he calls out Jack Perry, and we all have to make sacrifices, and this is Cutler's. So, you know what? You want to add Darby Allin to Blood and Guts? I am not going to complain. I've got nothing bad to say about that. So right now the Elite are 5, right? You've got the Bucks and Okada. You have Jack Perry and Hangman. So they're 5. So and right now we have Swerve, and we have Mark Briscoe? Yeah, Mark Briscoe, right? Mark Briscoe added himself to the Blood and Guts. So we have these 2 people added in to the Blood and Guts match. And, 3 others that could easily not be the Acclaimed, but will probably be, right? We're probably going to end up with the Acclaimed in this, which, I wouldn't do it. And then, do you put Danielson in here? Would Danielson be a part of this? Or do you just, do you close it all up with the BCC? You throw Mox, Danielson, Claudio kind of thing. And just let's go. The last great Blood and Guts had these Mox and company in it. And it was just tremendous. Yeah, Mox's not around these days. I think he's taking some time off. Resting up and hanging out with his daughter, which is all fine. He should. But you do wonder what his trajectory is going to be going towards Wembley. That'll be something to keep an eye on. But look, this is what we have as it stands right now. And that is going to wrap up this edition of the review, right? Because the next thing that happened after Darby Allin beating up on Brandon Cutler was Mariah May versus Willow Nightingale. Willow Nightingale, I forgot to mention, right? Wearing some choice Owen Hart gear, Owen Hart inspired gear, the black and yellow Danger. I thought that was sweet. So there you go. Good stuff all around. Look, a good little episode, but nothing even remotely close to what happened last week. But like I said, Dynamite starting off with something strong, ending with something super strong, and some good stuff in the middle. Like we had some good matches. Stuff is happening, angles. It was not a boring show. A good little show, a good little Dynamite this week. Next week, they're pumping up to 250. Episode 250. That has to deliver. That has to super deliver like last week. It has to. Right? We're going to have the international championship match. Will Ospreay defending against MJF. Swerve Strickland versus... Why am I doing this suddenly? Swerve Strickland versus Kazuchika Okada for the title in this case, and the TBS Championship Open Challenge issued by Mercedes Moné. I'll tell you one thing, it won't be Stephanie Vicaire answering it. I think she's boy oh boy, she's committed now. Anywho, all right, that's enough. Got on too long. Thank you everyone for being here. Hope you enjoyed this Dynamite review. If you liked it, leave a like on YouTube, a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, 5-star rating on Spotify as well. Those things all help out. I will be back very soon with some more stuff. Of course, the Mr. Warren Hayes Show will record live as per usual Tuesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern. Show up if you can. That would be tremendous. And before that, the G1 Climax 34 festivities will be going on. Be sure to tune in to pop back tomorrow for my first of 2 preview shows for the G1. The first one being with Chris Samza of sportifprowrestling.com, where we break everything down. And then I will likely have another one in the meantime as well. But yeah, you're going to have to subscribe and just come back to see what the hell's going on. Thank you, everyone. Sometimes I don't even know what the hell's going on. Thank you very much for being here, and I'll see you next time.